really to get an opportunity to speak to Holly in more detail and find out a bit more about the Fife Active Travel Strategy and this consultation. I think this is an amazing opportunity. We've been working, all of us as communities, working on aspects of this for many years, and it's great to see Fife Council trying to get its ducks in a line so that it's going to be able to take forward an ambitious plan of developing active travel network. Let's hope that's where we're going. So we've got myself, Ali Macleod. I'm from Fife Communities Climate Action Network and also Transition University St Andrews. And today's event has been put on a collaboration between FCCAN, Fife Communities Climate Action Network, and the Climate Action Fife. And Climate Action Fife is a Fife-wide partnership bringing individuals, communities together, tackle climate emergency, and it's with Fife Council, led by Greener Kirkcaldy, lots of other partners across Fife working on that. And the Climate Hub is a FCAN project that we were lucky to be funded for, that's really about empowering communities to take action on climate change, about building capacity of the existing groups, and also expanding that network of communities that are working on climate action across Fife. So just got a couple of questions here. Andy said there, if you can put your name, well, we're going to do a quick go round actually, just to get everybody's mouse moving. So if it's all right, I'll just take everyone in turn and get everyone to introduce themselves. And if you can put in the chat a number between 1 and 5 about how you feel at the moment with regards to active travel provision in Fife. So 1 being poor, 5 being amazing. Okay, I'll just do a go round. Holly, do you want to go first? Just introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Holly. I'm the Sustrans Embedded Officer in Fife Council, and I've been leading on the Active Travel Strategy for Fife, which is what I want to talk to you about today and get all your opinions.
Thanks, Holly. Bob? You okay, Bob?
Yeah, okay. What, do you want a question or just say what I'm here for?
Yeah, who you are and where you're from.
Oh, yeah, it's Bob Bilson from Sustrans Community Trust.
Perfect, thanks, Bob. Patrick and Avril?
We're in St Andrews space for cycling, so we live in St Andrews, and we really can hardly cycle anywhere any longer. I'm worried about getting run over.
Thank you. And Anne?
Hi, I'm the sort of path leads for the Community Council in Burntisland, and I'm also the Secretary of the Community Council in Burntisland. But I got together recently with a group of people representing Burntisland Harbour Access Trust, Burntisland Community Development Trust, Craigencourt Rural Community Trust, which is Kinghorn based near the Loch, and a couple of other people that are the editor of the local Borough Buzz quarterly magazine, who's a keen cyclist, and another chap who is a cycle activist in Burntisland. So it's not just about cycling, I appreciate that, but most of us also had experience of assisting wheelers as well. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anne.
So we got a more or less a consensus. I think there were 11 of us invited and 8 turned up. So I think after a bit of to and fro, we've got something that I think is our wee list of priorities.
That's great. Thanks, Anne. And that collaboration sounds really powerful. Say Julia, but it's not Julia.
Yeah, no, it's Stuart. That's my wife's name. The computer's under her name. Stuart Knowles from Falkland Community Council, representing active travel issues in North East Fife.
Thanks, Stuart. And Mary?
Mary Ellen Robertson. I'm from Cooper, and I'm with Sustainable Cooper Active Travel.
Brilliant, thanks. Jane Houston. Jane?
Hello, yes, I'm Jane Houston, and I'm the Secretary of Strathclyde Community Council.
Thanks, Jane. And Ingrid?
I'm a member of Newborough Community Council, and also here mainly for Newborough Train Campaign, and I'm a keen cyclist.
Wonderful, thanks. Lada Wilson? I reckon.
Sorry for the delay. Okay, I'm Lada Wilson. I'm a Strathclyde Community Council trustee, and also I run the 201 Telephone Box Gallery in Strathclyde. And I'm here with my husband, Scott, who is a keen cyclist, and he's a member of community who always has something to say.
Wonderful, thanks, Lada. And Mark?
Yeah, I'm Mark Nesbitt from Kinghorn. I'm individual. I'm just keen on, well, I'm keen on active travel, basically. So I'd like to find out more about what's going on.
Brilliant. Sounds like we've got some brilliant, collaborative work in, a lot of representation, which is just what we need at this forum. So I know you're going to be bringing lots of other, your neighbourhoods, your communities' voices to this discussion, I hope. But really happy to have Holly here to sort of take us through the plan and also tell us a bit about next steps as well, which we'll try and get out of you. So Holly, is it all right to hand over to you?
Yes. Hello. As Andy said before, if anyone has any questions throughout my presentation, please raise your hand and Andy will stop me. I won't be able to see any views when I'm presenting, so I need Andy to politely interrupt me. But please do interrupt. It's much easier to answer questions when we're talking about a topic than to finish the presentation and then have to remember exactly what I was trying to say at the end. So I will start sharing my presentation. Where is it gone?
What's coming up now, Holly?
Perfect.
Okay.
Let me just pop it on full screen. If I can work out how to do that. Where's my... As you can tell, it has been a little while since I used Teams.
If you go to view.
There we go.
Right.
That it?
That's it. Thanks.
Perfect. So, I'll skip past the first couple of slides. So today I'm going to go over what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, the aims, the process we're undertaking, the network we're proposing, the supporting measures we're proposing, and the time scale and next steps. First of all, this is a Fife Council project, but we have commissioned Jacobs, the consultant, to help us get through all of this and make sure that it's as representative of Fife as we can. So they're helping with a lot of the consultation and the data analysis and helping me do all of this so it's not just a one-man band and we can make this as good as possible for everyone in Fife. So some background. As you probably know, Scottish Government is increasing the budget for active travel quite a lot, and having a strategy is really important for the council to be able to access this funding. And we do have some examples of good infrastructure in Fife. We have some not so good examples of active travel infrastructure in Fife, and we have some gaps that definitely need filling. But what we don't have is a aspirational network of what we would like Fife to look like in the future. We don't have something to aim for, and that is what we hope this strategy will become. We know it's not a quick a quick process. We're not saying that we'll wake up tomorrow morning and have all of these routes and all the other implementations in place, but it gives us something to aim for. It's also a commitment from the local transport strategy. It's action 1 of the local transport strategy to create an active travel strategy and action plan, which needs to be done within the first year, which we are definitely going to manage because the LTS got approved in November. So we're already a good way on with doing that. So our aims are to support people to walk, wheel or cycle as much as they can and leave the car at home where possible. It's not just about cycling, and I know cycling seems to be what comes up because that's where a lot of the money is, but we do also need to make sure that people who walk or wheel are prioritized, as they're often more vulnerable than cyclists and need extra to help them get out and about. For example, if you're in a wheelchair and there's no dropped curbs, you can't just get out and bump up a pavement, whereas on your bike it's a bit of a hassle, but you can go up a curb. We want everyone to be able to walk, wheel or cycle for everyday journeys and for leisure. No matter what they're doing, we want them to be able to have the option to leave the car at home. The target comes from the local transport strategy to increase the proportion of active travel trips to 30% by 2033, so just less than 10 years from now. We hope that this strategy will help us do that by providing opportunities and facilitating people to be able to walk, cycle or wheel more often. So it will include a network of routes in Fife and complemented by other steps which we think can help people change their behaviour and encourage them to get out and about more actively. One of the purposes of the active travel strategy is to help the council as well secure the funding. Transport Scotland have told us that we need an active travel strategy to be able to help secure some of this funding that's been the new funding that's come through the government. So we need this strategy to be able to do that. And we didn't just want it to be a lip service strategy. We wanted to make sure that it worked for the people in Fife, because ultimately it's the people in Fife we want to help. I'm already converted to walking and cycling as much as I can. I'm not the person that we're trying to talk to. We want to talk to the people who need that help, who need support to be able to walk, wheel or cycle. The strategy will help us support bids for funding, especially for infrastructure, because if it's a line on our map, we can show that it's part of our strategy to have a route there. It will also help us talk internally to other council departments and push active travel across as many different council departments as possible to make sure that it is on everyone's minds and in all of the decisions we make, trying to make it a council-wide strategy as much as we can. So now I'm going to flick through some maps of our network. Please do stop me if you have any questions. First of all, this map is quite difficult to look at. I will show you the live version in a minute, but just to give you an idea what you're looking at, we've got our Fife-wide network. It's a high-level network, so these are where we think routes should be, but we won't be going into detail in every single town and village. This is more connecting different areas or different towns and villages to other local areas. So we tried to make sure that we were connecting all transport hubs, education, schools, big workplaces, or points of interest that people might have. But
Anne, could I? Have you got your hand up there, Anne? Do you want to come in? Sorry, Holly.
Yeah, I was
jump
just going
in.
to say there's a number of, you'll probably realise that there's a number of errors in your map. Certainly for our area, when you zoom in, it's not up to date. We have various routes which are not on that map.
Okay, yeah. So can I ask where you are again, Anne, just so I know where I'm
Burnt
talking
Island.
about? Burnt Island. Okay. So
Listen, I've already sent something last night, I think, to Alan McLean, and I copied it to Craig at FCAN because he sent the link to this meeting, but I can send it to you as well.
that would be
which
great.
sort of summarises what we've been looking at. It's a bit chunky, but because it's partly this is what we support, and also this is what your map's not right about.
No, that's grand. That's part of the reason for having this consultation, is to make sure we've got it right. And we won't have it right everywhere. So having these comments from people to show us where we've missed, where we've put lines in the wrong place, or where we've put lines that are just nonsensical, is really important, because we need this network to work for the people who live in those areas, and no one knows their local area better than somebody who lives there. I live in Dunfermline, but I don't know all of Fife. So it is really that's part of the reason we have this consultation, is to make sure we've got it right. And this map we have will be fully edited with all the comments we've received throughout the consultation, so that the final product will be something that works for people in Fife, and not just lines drawn in map by myself. And
yeah, we were a bit concerned that when the consultation came in for the Kinghorn to Kirkcaldy route, nothing came to us in Burnt Island, which is absolutely crazy. Yeah, we didn't hear anything about it, and it was just at the last minute, because I know someone on Green Kirkcaldy that got the link and was able to join by Teams, and realised that we need a unified approach to this.
That's the Sustrans route between Kinghorn. Yeah, I didn't know that Burnt Island hadn't been told about it. I would have assumed you would have been, but
you would have assumed so. I don't think there was
maybe
much consultation at Kinghorn either.
That's also concerning. Maybe I shouldn't assume things. But yeah, no, the idea is that we're asking your opinion, and if we've got it wrong, we've got it wrong. I'm not precious about it. I'm not going to get offended if anyone thinks we've put a line in the wrong place. We want it to be as right as we can for everyone.
Holly, just to confirm, so if one person puts in a line on a map, how is that compared to, say, a community council or a group that's been working on it for 10 years? How do you value that difference?
So we need, when we'll, at the end of the consultation, we'll have a look at what people have suggested. If it's been suggested by a group or more than one person has put a new line on the map, then it'll get higher consideration than if just one single person has put it on, if that makes sense. However, just because only one person's put something on the map doesn't mean we'll discount it. We will look at all of the suggestions and make sure that we're adding in everything that seems like it should be there. As I said, we're not including all of the small, like, inner town, inner village connections. So if for example someone's put a line going from their house to the end of the street, probably wouldn't include something like that. But if we've missed, say, a link to a primary school, or a link to some supermarkets or leisure facilities or something like that, then yes, we would include it. Does that make sense? I'm going to assume silence means yes.
Yes, yep.
So another thing to note about these routes is that there's no we haven't done feasibility studies on them, so the lines are more indicative than exactly where any link is going to go. They follow the roads at the minute, mainly because that's the easiest place to draw lines on GIS. When the system we used, but just because the line follows the road doesn't mean that any link that's put in between the 2 points will follow the road. And each new link will get a feasibility study to decide what is the best intervention for them, whether that is fully segregated or shared use path off road or reducing speed limits or one of the other various other interventions that we can do, but it will be based on the standards set by Cycling by Design and other guidance we use. This is a long-term vision, and we just want to make, at the minute, we want to make sure that we have lines in the right place and that we have connected up Fife enough. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to run through some of the images of the network. I think that's what's coming next. Yeah, so we have just some zoomed in images. The red lines are what we think, what we're terming strategic, where we think that they possibly have a higher volume of users and the local are still important, but maybe have a lower volume of users who will be using them. I'll flick through the images, give you a few minutes on each, and then if anyone has any questions, please just jump in.
Holly, just wondered if is there a difference here between what the ambition is and what's existing? Just for clarity.
No, on this map, we haven't differentiated between what exists and what our ambition is. We wanted to show the network as we would see it in its final point, if that makes sense. So imagine a future where there's a fully connected network across Fife. This is what we would have in place.
Okay, thanks.
And the green circles or nodes are interchanges of routes, and they're numbered mainly to help us identify people's comments. It's much easier, for example, to say, have a comment about a section of route between C something and C something else than try and describe places in Fife.
Could you just give us an idea as well of the types of intervention? So the difference between, say, strategic urban, strategic rural, what is the intervention difference and why does it need a different line? And then I'll come to Anne after that.
Okay, so the urban and rural split was mainly to show which ones are in the more built up areas and which ones are in more rural areas. It doesn't really denote exactly what different interventions will be. However, some of the more rural ones may be routes that would end up being on quiet roads with reduced speed limits, for example, rather than fully segregated or shared use path, whereas the more urban ones are more likely to be your shared use paths or segregated cycling and walking and wheeling. It was just to help differentiate between the two types, the two sort of locations, if that makes sense.
Anne?
Holly, do you want us just to jump in when you show us the map? I mean, what do you want us to do when you show us the map?
If you've got any comments, just jump in, please. I can't see any of you, so just
I can
shout.
tell you at the bottom, C22 to C23. That's a steep hill up the side of Starks Park football ground. That might be a narrow pavement which the children use going to and from Balweary School. But that's not a route that you would think that wheelers or cyclists would find particularly easy, particularly if you're trying to encourage people who are not regular cyclists to get out and about. So I appreciate what you say is you looked at a map and you thought that, you know, it should be indicative of you want to go from here to here, but that there must be some local knowledge that you can tap into that would be able to help you get these routes a bit more user-friendly, not just for enthusiasts.
That's fair enough. That's the kind of what I'm hoping here. So when we did in a drop-in event in Kirkcaldy, there was a few people who mentioned the sort of section down that way, sort of C19, C18, 21, 22, and 23. And we definitely have some other suggestions there. But if you have particular suggestions of how it could be better routed to get from to C22 to C23, I'm definitely all ears.
Where does Alan McLean fit in with this? Because he's the guy that we've had most dealings with over the recent years.
Alan is my manager at the council.
Right.
So he's
he
looked
knows
over
a lot
all
of
these
these.
maps.
He knows a lot of these routes and probably has cycled them.
Yes. He has also looked over these maps before, when we were in the sort of draft phase of them. But it is good to know locations that are particularly steep, and then I know that they'll need a bit more work to find a better alternative that works for everyone to get from A to B. Any other comments about Kirkcaldy?
Yeah.
Hello?
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yeah, it's Bob here from Strathclyde Community Trust. Holly, on the dotted blue routes, which is local rural. Yeah. Okay. Can you explain exactly what they are? We've got one in our village which goes from sort of Bonfield Road up to Blebo Crags, but what can you do? What can you do for that particular route? It's a local rural one.
So local rural, we sort of anticipate that it's still important, but there'd be less people using it, and it's in a more rural location. For each individual route, we'll need to do sort of feasibility studies to understand exactly what would work in that particular area. So it really depends on where a good link would be, if it's beside a road, what the traffic speeds are, what the traffic volumes are, any other sort of barriers,
Well,
including gradients and things.
In this particular case, it's just a muddy track through farmland.
Right.
That goes a couple of miles from the village to the next village. It's unusual at the moment because it's like ankle deep. You couldn't, you could get through it with wellers, but that's about all. So is that something you may propose to make into something which was navigable by a cycle or by foot?
So the aim eventually would be have all of these routes to be able to be used by anyone on foot, in a wheelchair or a mobility scooter, on their bike, pushing a buggy, anyway. So I'm not sure exactly what order things would get done in, but the idea would be in like 20-30 years time, all of these routes would have a surface that means that anyone could use them.
Okay, because for Strathclyde, that was actually the only active travel route made. Can I just ask you a question about, are you familiar with the work done in the recent sort of 15 years in Macleod on rural routes where various traffic calming measures are put in place. It's been very, very successful. It's been reported in newspapers like the Courier. Are you familiar with that work in Macleod?
Some of it. I'm familiar with some of it. I used to work over in Stirling, so I know bits and pieces about how it's got on and what's been done, but not in too much great detail. But I know of it.
So, I mean, as far as you know, has it been successful? Because it did start some time ago, and it might be like a model that could be taken up in Fife if it has been that successful.
I think it's been relatively successful. We will look at what neighbouring councils are doing, if nothing else, to make sure that where we cross boundaries, we're not coming to a dead stop, or we're not changing what signage would look like, or we're not making it confusing. So we'll talk to like Perthington, Ross, Clacks, and to a lesser degree, whichever Lothian it is across the bridge. Can't remember which Lothian that is. But we don't want you to get to the edge of, like, say, Fife and Clacks and then have to work out where to go because the signage change or the surface stops or whatever.
Do you have any thoughts on speed calming measures? Can it be done just with signage, or do you need sort of chicanes like they have in Peat-in, that sort of thing? What can you say about speed calming? I mean, when we're talking about Strathkinnis again, the link between our high road in Strathkinnis and St Andrews are proposing to have a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in town, and yet as soon as you get away from that 20-mile limit in St Andrews, you're immediately 60 miles an hour on a what's meant to be a national cycle network. So what thoughts have you got on that?
There are various different speed calming measures. I can't really say what would be put in each individual place. Again, that would need to be through a feasibility study and through talking to the community and working out exactly what would work. However, the traffic calming does have an effect. It does work. But I think each type of intervention has its own place. Some places work really well just with signage, that's enough. Some people need chicanes, or other sort of measures in place. But we'll look at each one kind of individually, to see what works better there.
Yeah.
There was another
Okay.
question.
That's fine. Thank you, Holly.
Did you still have a question, Mr. Petticoat?
Yeah, it's David Lyon. So this is my business account I'm using. It's just on the route that Anne pointed out, the one that goes up by Starks Park, the steep road. There is a if you go round the back of Starks Park, there's a I forgot the road's called, past single track bikes, and there's a sort of rather muddy path that takes you out by the golf club, but it's flatter and you avoid the sort of steep hill. I'm just wondering whether that might be, obviously it would need a bit of work done to make it more weatherproof and get rid of the mud and etc. But that's might be worth looking at. It's fairly cyclable and walkable, even when it's muddy, but it would definitely need a bit of surface would need a bit of treatment, etc., to make it more weather resistant. But yeah, I'm just wondering whether you'd looked, that might be worth looking at.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. That's definitely something that we'll probably have a fair number of routes that we've just drawn on a map, and then in more detailed feasibility studies will come out that actually no, we need to go around the side of the hill rather than straight up and down it, for example. But it is good to know that there is another option there, because if we find that out now, we can amend these lines on the map a little bit more to show a slightly more likely alignment. And yeah, surfacing, we want any route that we put in to be fully accessible, so the surface needs to be suitable for wheelchairs and buggies and mobility scooters, as well as cyclists and walkers. Is that all the comments so far? I'll move on. We've got a couple of other maps, but I realize I'm a little bit over time. So I might just whiz through these and then get up the interactive map where people can ask me to zoom in on various bits and pieces and see certain locations, if that is okay. There's some other maps of locations, and can you see the interactive map?
Yeah.
Someone?
Go ahead,
Yes.
Holly.
Perfect. Okay, so this is the interactive map that's on our story map. Over here, you can turn off some of the features. So you can turn off the nodes to make sure you see the lines. You can turn off the NCN, so you can just see what we're adding to the NCN. And you can turn off our network, but I'm not entirely sure why you do that, because that's the whole point of using this map. On here, you can zoom in and out. It takes a couple of minutes to load, but if you zoom in, you can see in a bit more detail exactly where we're proposing links would go. So if anyone has anywhere in particular they'd like me to zoom in on, please just shout. I think we've got a few people from sort of St. Andrews way and up this way, so I'll have you zoom in up here. And this will be the blue dotted line you were talking about for Strathkinnis as the rural route. But yeah, any questions or comments, please just shout.
Sorry, I was just going to say that I never got that map. I only ever got the other map, so I think some of the links are wrong. I never got, I know you sent me other links, but I never got the interactive one. So I don't know how many other people never got the interactive map. Maybe it's just my computer.
Oh, did you get
other
this?
links? When I go onto the map bit, nothing comes up. I've just got some other, your earlier map under the first section. So just be aware of that. Maybe
okay.
It's computer.
Do you have this?
I've got all that bit, yeah. I just haven't got the bit when you go into the map.
And there's no link at the top here for the map?
Well, there's a link, nothing comes up.
Oh, right, okay. That's
anyway, other people maybe have more modern computers.
That's still useful to know.
Mary, do you want to come in? Mary Ellen?
I've already filled in the survey as an individual, but I'm going to be filling it in on behalf of the group. And I found the dropping the pin bit a bit tricky, and just getting the map to be stable and identifying what I'm trying to put. So I've got two questions. First of all, if I continue to find that difficult, can I send you an email with the sort of nodes as reference points? And
absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing is, one of the things, or in fact, I'd like to be suggesting a couple of completely new routes because of the peculiar circumstances in Cooper, ways across the river or the railway line. So can I, again, send in an email with those new routes As long as
Yes.
they're between nodes, is that the idea?
Even if they're not between nodes, send them anyway. If they're not between nodes, just make sure you've got like the street names or something, just so I can actively
Okay,
find
that's fine. Right,
where
thanks.
you're talking about. No worries.
Yeah.
There's no other questions.
Ingrid, Ingrid, you got your hand up.
Yeah, Holly, have you any chance of flicking to Newborough area where it joins with Perth? Just
Up
to
here?
point out, yeah, that yellow, you know, the national cycle route between there. If you actually look at the whole map, there's a huge gap between here, the Newborough yellow bit, and then it just stops, you know, as it goes into Perthshire.
Yeah.
And that's a major gap, and it's a very dangerous road, that Abernethy Newborough road. Somebody I know was knocked off recently, so we don't, and the pavement's not good enough to go on. But I mean, that is a priority. I would have thought a lot of people use that route from Angus and from Perthshire. So anyway, I was just stressing that bit. And for even the coastal walk ends in Newborough, people have, you know, there's the connection, possibly railway station, coastal walk, all ending in Newborough. So it's important it's linked with Perth.
Yeah. No, that's good to know.
I'm wondering how much consultation you did in terms of linking with the areas round about Fife when you made this map.
So we've been talking to our like neighbouring councils. We've got Perth and Kinross, Clackmannanshire, over in Dundee, even though it's just the bridge, and across to the Lothians. I have been talking to people from their councils to make sure that we're not just going to be ending, like you're not going to get to the end of Fife and have a wonderful active travel route that just stops because you went into another council area. So we have been communicating with them to make sure that we they know what we're up to and we know what they're up to, if that makes sense.
Stuart, there's a question from Stuart.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, basically I'm chair of Transport Planning and Engineering, and on behalf of Perth and Kinross Council, we are building an off-road route between Perth and Abernethy, and that is being constructed at the moment at Bridge of Erne. So if you see roadworks there and traffic lights, that is them constructing a path, you know, not on the road, by the side of the road, which you can walk and wheel and cycle on. And that will go all the way to Abernethy, which you can see there, which is part way towards Newborough. So basically, I'm surprised that's not shown on your map, because that's actually being built at the moment, that route. Obviously, it will take a few years to complete. So
we haven't shown anything outside of Fife apart from the NCN on our map. The only thing we've shown outside of Fife is the National Cycle Network. But this line that stops at the end of Fife here would be the one that would be connecting onto there.
Yeah, what I'm saying is Perth and Kinross as a council are already spending money and implementing on the ground a safe cycle route between you know, Perth all the way to Abernethy.
Yeah.
And that will be probably completed in the next couple of years, because you know I'm involved in that as a member of the board of Transport Planning and Engineering, who are the consultant doing the work and getting the contract out and making sure that it's all built to the right standards.
Yeah.
Ingrid, can I just come back to Ingrid quickly? Did you want to respond to that, Ingrid?
I mean, it's very important actually what you've said, and I'm aware that you are building something there. But it's the bit between Abernethy and Newborough that is always the bit that's left out in terms of buses. And, you know, buses stop at Abernethy and turn around and go back to Perth. It's that bit in between which is very dangerous the Newborough Abernethy bit.
So that I believe is that an issue? How do you deal with these sort of cross-border issues, Holly?
So,
Is it through Sustrans?
so I know that, not myself, but one of my colleagues is working on this active travel route between Newborough and Abernethy with Perth and Kinross Council. This discussion's ongoing at the minute, and work is being done on that to link up with the Bridge of Erne Abernethy path. So I do know that is ongoing at the minute. I don't know exactly, I don't have loads of details about it, but I can get them, Ingrid,
If you could
if you're...
pass that on to Ingrid, that'd be great. And Stuart, I guess. Maybe
could I ask, I want to capture some of this on the Padlet. Could we go to the Padlet and perhaps your questions, I can then put them in, and then we've sort of captured them as a group response?
I wonder if there's just a couple of questions that should we just go to the Padlet, and then I'm just wondering how you're going to input that onto the Padlet, but because the questions are quite they're a bit broader, aren't they?
Yeah.
No, they would work. Okay, so do you mind, Patrick Ann? I'll come to you in a second. What I'll do is just flash up the Padlet and just show you the questions, and then what we'll do is fill them in as we're going, but we'll pick it up. Is that all right?
Do you want me to stop sharing for now?
Yes, please.
So the Padlet is really just taking those questions and putting it into a form that this group is is specific, a specific response from this group essentially. So they're the same questions that we're seeing on our in the consultation, and we'll send those straight to Holly. So if you've seen these before, we've got the first three questions all look the same, and I had to read them a number of times. But the first one is really about the overall level of ambition. So it's more the kind of strategic, broad sense. Is this looking good? The next one is, do you think that the level of ambition for the network of strategic active travel routes is too little, about right? And then the third one is about active travel, hold on, is that local? So we've got the difference there is the whole network, the strategic routes, and then the local routes. So what we'll do is, well, you can write, I guess you can write, or Andrew, are you thinking we do this as everyone does it together, or everybody can fill in their own Padlet?
Well, I don't mind if you can sort of direct the questions towards the consultation questions, then I can fill it in. But people, if you click on the link in the chat, you can add your own responses if you want as well. I think it should work. Both should work.
If everyone's got that, I'll come back then to the questions. And Holly, if you want to go back to your start. So I believe then we've covered a strategic link in Kirkcaldy. So we need to write some notes on that. And then we've just looked at Ingrid. It's another strategic link, and that one is in the Newborough to Perth, really, isn't it? Is that in the National Cycle Network there? Once we've gone through this, I'd like to come back to the Padlet and get an idea of the other questions. But maybe if Holly, if you can finish your presentation, if that's okay.
Yes. Do you want me to start sharing my presentation again, or
yeah?
Do you want
and
to
then I'm going to come to
up
the hands. I think it was Anne first, but I don't know. Was it Anne?
I think it was Patrick before me, but I'll just dive in if that's all right. I was going to ask about whether there's been any, or whether any of the funding that's coming to active travel routes, is there any liaison with Network Rail and the rail strategy? We have issues in Burntisland in that we're out we're out in a little, almost like a little island off Burnt Island, where we've got hilly, windy country roads all around us. But we have a railway station, and it's because we're in the commuting corridor for Edinburgh, not just for work, but for secondary education as well, and of course leisure and tourism. You know, the railway station probably doesn't get used as much as it might do by people who would benefit from active travel routes, because it's not step free. You know, the wheelchairs can't use it at all, and a lot of people who get breathless or a bit tired and they can't manage either. And if you've ever stood on the platform and watched people carrying bicycles, buggies and luggage up and down stairs and round corners, it's absolutely crazy. And I appreciate that it's a problem all through Scotland with poor access to railway stations. But it seems to me that it's really important that when you're designing active travel within the county of Fife, that you also consider the travel nodes. Particularly rail is a really good one for you know, people who have limited mobility issues to use to get out and into the rail station. But if you can't get up and down easily to the railway station, it becomes quite bonkers. So my question is, how much power, money, funding is there with the strategy for active travel in Fife linking with rail station links?
So we've been talking to John Lauder and other people from ScotRail, Network Rail. We had a meeting with them last week. Yeah, a meeting with them last week to go over the presentation I've shown you and get their comments. And we'll have meetings with John Lauder in coming weeks to see exactly what we need to do and
so
how
who is
we
John
can
Lauder
make...
exactly?
He is let me get his job title right.
Is he a man of power?
He is the one who has done the new access to stations. I'll get his actual title up.
Who does he work for, Holly?
He works for Network Rail, and he has done the new strategy for, I think it's sustainable access to stations or something along those lines. So he's looking...
No, Access for All is a UK government funding thing which comes to Scotland, and then if you don't get on that, then there's a separate Scottish thing. These are quite high level, and we've been trying for many, well, I don't know how many years, try and get funding and getting nowhere. It all just goes to the central Edinburgh-Glasgow corridor and the odd station in Aberdeenshire.
John Lauder has the ability and power to get the funding spread out to other stations, and not just
Is he right? He's Network Rail Scotland, yeah.
Network Rail Scotland. If you give me...
Oh yeah, give me his I shall hound him. I do my colleague dog, but if you give me his contact details.
Let me see if I can... So
I have questions from...
Let me get this right. So John Lauder created the Sustainable Access to Stations, which was a Sustrans Network Rail document that's been produced to help improve sustainable access to station and leverage funding to stations that need access improved, so things like stairs, etc. We are talking to him and other people in ScotRail as well about how we can improve this access and highlighting which stations in Fife don't have step-free access. Burnt Island is one of them.
Very much. No, I know it's the top one. Busiest,
Burnt Island
most useful. Yeah.
So we're looking at that now, and we've got meetings coming up with John Lauder and other ScotRail people to help make a better plan and see how we can include that in this strategy. Because it's all well and good us saying we need to remove step-free access, but if we don't have Network Rail on board, there's nothing we can do about it. So we're getting them on board now.
Thanks. Okay, and would you be able to put that under question 1 then, under strategic view? It seems to be out with the
On the Padlet, you mean?
On the Padlet, if you can do that. Is everyone okay with the Padlet? So there's a little plus.
Can you put comments in there then, in addition to just right?
I've added
that
your
link and then
yeah, I've added your bit that you would like to see links with railway station in Cooper, and you've asked if there's funding to link up with railway stations. Yeah, were you in Cooper? Or are you Burnt Island?
No, Burnt Island.
Burnt
Island. We have a huge problem in Burnt Island with lack of step-free access.
Great.
And
okay,
it's not just bikes.
No. Okay, I'll come to Patrick and Avril there.
Hi there, Holly. It's just really wondering how much awareness you have of the strategic route between sort of Crail and St Andrews, and the work that was done for a number of years by the group, which includes Ali there, in terms of trying to get a route that could be eventually set off road and safe for both commuters and people coming through Fife as cyclists wanting to enjoy the county. It is something which we got quite far onto, but there were a couple of issues about land ownership, and which didn't help matters, which maybe needed a bit more force coming from higher authorities such as Fife Council to try and actively change the possibility of the route being something we could eventually get funding and develop, because it's something which is a road that is a popular road, and we need to have some idea whether this is a likely one that you will consider.
So, yes, I'm aware. I'm aware of the St Andrews Crail, and I know that landowners can be an issue in general. Land ownership is an issue for a fair number of routes across Fife. One of the things we hope this strategy will do is, if there's a strategic or a link on our map as a strategy, it gives us a bit more, like it gives us a bit more backup when we go to a landowner and say we want to talk to you about putting a cycle route or an active travel route. It looks like it'll go through or by the side or whatever of your land. We want to start talking to you about it. Here it's in our active travel strategy for Fife. It gives us, hopefully, if it's in a strategy document, it gives us a bit more standing to go to them. It's in a Fife Council stamped strategy document. We've kind of committed to having a look at it and doing it, so it gives us a bit more oomph with the landowners, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I can see where you're coming from. I think one of the issues that might be around with this is the that if some landowners are very, very sort of stubborn about it, there are legal ways in which one can, so Fife Council could try and acquire the access, which I know happened, for example, with Luger's Station, getting the land for the additional car parking there. They had to use compulsory measures. But I don't know whether Fife would be prepared and know whether it could get funding to do that for the occasional bit of land on cycle paths, which maybe if we've got three quarters or more of the route accessible, then well, we need some way in which we would get this remaining bit, as you can understand, accessible, so we can then start the actual work of constructing the cycle route.
So I can't comment on if Fife Council will be willing to go to compulsory purchase. I do know it's an option. It's not been done in Scotland for an active travel path yet. That doesn't mean it couldn't be, but I can't say on behalf of the council whether it is or is not an option. Obviously, initially we'd be looking to negotiate without going that far. But I don't have the authority to say whether that's a viable thing or not.
Okay. Is that okay, Patrick? Can I move on?
Yeah, fine, Alex.
Okay. I think was it David next, and then Jane? David, you want to?
Yeah, just a comment on Burnt Island. I'm from Burnt Island Community Development Trust, and I think Anne's probably covered it in the submission that she made on behalf of the Community Council and the Development Trust. But just to point out that actually, although connectivity from Burnt Island, other than to Kinghorn, it isn't great. So even though there's the National Cycle Network route that goes along the coastal path to Aberdour, it's not, it's good for walkers, but it's not really suitable for bikes other than mountain bikes or gravel bikes, and it's narrow, very narrow in some parts, and it's so there's potential for sort of conflict with walkers and dog walkers, etc. And then the routes to the north are non-existent, so people wanting to go to Cowdenbeath or that direction, there's no connectivity at all, and it just but there is scope, in my opinion anyway, to sort of do something on the A909 up towards Cowdenbeath. So it's just, if you look at the map, Burnt Island's fairly in terms of cycling, there's not a lot of options. In terms of cycling and wheeling anyway, there's not a lot of options beyond going to Kinghorn. Otherwise, you're just cycling around the town if you want to stay on relatively safe traffic-free routes. So I just wonder whether you could look at connectivity from Burnt Island again, and sort of given a few more options than there are at present.
Thank you. Okay, and Jane.
Thank you. Just to go back to Strathkinnis, sorry, excuse me. Bob has already mentioned the route that is shown on the interactive map to Blepo Craigs. What the Community Council and indeed the wider community is quite perplexed about is the fact that the proposed route that we've been in discussion for 20 years or so from Strathkinnis along the high road into St Andrews isn't shown there, and from conversations that we've been having this morning, there are I see plenty of factors there that would support that, particularly with the new Madras school, and we're talking about a distance of approximately a mile to have a safe walking and cycle route, which would certainly, in the opinion of a lot of members of the community, encourage that active travel to school and indeed to work in St Andrews. The landowner issue is definitely a problem for us. We've had many discussions about that as well. And if by having that route included on the interactive map and the plan would give us any kind of impetus to move that on, we would be extremely grateful.
I have had that comment from a few people. And I'm pretty sure I've had a few people say that they've put it on the map as well, like on our survey. But I'll make another note of that. So that's the high road out of Strathkinnis to St Andrews.
Yes.
And it links to the school.
Well, we would hope, link to the school.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's Madras.
That seemed a great opportunity there, Holly, to work with the landowners and developers on a route that really is would serve a lot of people, because it's just within that cycle distance, Strathkinnis to St Andrews, you'll really get a big bang for your buck. I'll just come to.
Yeah, right. You can hear me, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I've got quite a few comments. The first one was about John Lauder. John Lauder is the Deputy Chief Exec of Sustrans.
Not anymore.
Anymore? Or has he left? He's left Sustrans.
He works for Network Rail now. Yeah.
Oh, right. So he's actually, I'd heard he was seconded to Network Rail. He now joined Network Rail.
Yeah. So he was seconded
right.
when he did the strategy. And then he now works for them, which is why I can't remember his job title, because it's quite a recent change.
Okay, right. Thank you. Right. The next thing is the Strathkinnis to St Andrews. Yes. In Perth and Kinross on the dry side between Strathmigler and Lochleven, they have designated the dry side, which is a C classified road, as 20 mile an hour and 30 mile an hour. 20 mile an hour where it's passing an old people's home, and 30 mile an hour, where there are houses. And they call it a walking and cycle friendly route. Why are we not implementing Strathkinnis to St Andrews with a speed limit of 30 mile an hour as a cycling and walking friendly route? because you've got the B road, you know, if cars want to go fast and they can drop down to the B road and then go in on that road, surely the unclassified road should have much lower speed limits that make them walking and cycling safe.
So at the minute, we don't have any of those roads in Fife that are the same as Perth and Kinross does. It's definitely something. Do we? I haven't seen any.
I know why.
I haven't seen any.
No, okay, I'm thinking it's
stop.
Perth and Kinross. I'm just thinking of, you're right.
They're in Perth and Kinross.
Yeah.
It's near Milnerthorpe, which is just outside.
Yeah, that's Perth and Kinross.
Yeah. They all stop at the border.
Yeah.
Between the two councils. It is.
I'm just saying, Perth and Kinross appear to be well ahead of us. You know. So.
It is one of the intervention types that we're looking at as potential for some of the routes, and it would only work on some routes, and it wouldn't work on others. For obvious reasons, we can't reduce the speed limit on all of the roads how much I'd like to. But
can I just come in on another comment? I spent half an hour filling in your questionnaire online, and when I sent it, it just said it was sending it, and it never got sent. So I'd spent half an hour, and at one point it said I'd written too many words, more than 256 words in my comments, and it gave me a red error message. And is that why it didn't go? Because I've got far more than 256 words to say about cycling in Fife and active travel in Fife. And what I'm asking, Holly, is do you want me to email you with all my comments? Because I could write a book on it, you know. So.
If you have comments to email, please do. I'm not sure why it didn't let you submit it. I will ask.
Can you check whether they got a submission from me? Because I would like to know, and just email. You've got my email address. Because it was very disappointing to spend half an hour filling in, referring to the map coordinates and everything, and then get told that I'd sent it, but it hadn't been, that it kept telling me it was being sent. I waited for half an hour and it was still being sent. So I presume it couldn't accept it because I filled it in wrong.
I don't know. I will check with Jacobs. Jacobs are hosting the
I know that.
online thing, so I don't have access.
You can imagine my disappointment having spent all that time. Yes.
Is it okay to put your email address in the chat, Holly?
Yes.
Right.
Please do.
Thanks, Stuart. That is frustrating. I always, after doing that a few times, write in Word first and then paste it over. Don't trust online forms, but I did have the same.
I agree with you.
Can I just jump in here on that one? Yeah, I had the same issue. The first box that you could put in, it will tell you. I can't remember where it was in the thing, but right at the beginning, it will tell you when you're running out of space. It looks as if you can keep writing, but then you can't. It stops.
Yeah.
But later on, when you come to suggest new routes or make comments, it gives you plenty of room, and you're typing away, and it looks as if you're finished. And then when you come to send it in, it tells you that you've written in too much. But
that's what I got. Yeah.
It doesn't tell you which box you've written too much in.
No, it doesn't tell you anything.
I assumed it was just a little box as far as I could see. So there is a problem with the actual functionality of it. It doesn't tell you later on that you're restricted to so many words. So I had to go back and re-edit and just put in a very short comment, because that way I knew it would at least go in. But I couldn't write everything I wanted to write, because although it seemed to be allowing me to type all this in, it wouldn't send.
I'm really glad you've had the same problem.
Yeah. So it is an issue with your software.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'll talk to Jacobs. I didn't know that was an issue. I haven't seen.
Yeah.
But it's helpful if you let me know when there are issues like that, because if not, I'm just happily thinking it's working fine.
Well, I just waited till today because I knew we had an opportunity to tell you. You know, so.
Thanks. Could I just ask everyone if they can put their hands up if they filled in the form so far? Is anyone?
As an individual, but I was waiting for the group until we finished today.
And then could you just say if you've had a problem, if anyone else has had a problem, overall?
With the map, I couldn't access the interactive map.
The map.
Comments about the cycle routes that I thought were important.
No trouble with the map. It was easy to see.
Could I just come on to the questions themselves, and maybe I'm not sure as a group if we can just get a feel for this, but the first question there, overall the overall sort of network, I presume. I did find these a bit vague, Holly. Maybe it's just me, but you know, saying that I guess because the three questions are all very similar, and trying to sort of split out what you're trying to get from me. So my feeling with the overall one was, this looks ambitious, but there's no targets here, so I haven't got anything to comment on. And then we got strategic. That's looking at those strategic links. And if I had any specific sort of questions around that, so obviously I'm going to talk about Anstruther, St Andrews, Crail, probably need to do different, split that up. And then the third one is the local links. Is that right? But you're looking at overall.
So the overall question was to make sure that you thought, looking at the whole map, we had enough lines on it. So there was enough connections, or we had too many connections or too few connections. But we wanted to make sure that people get people's opinion on whether, looking at the overall thing before going into too much detail, if it looked about right.
I guess it's that thing, time. I don't know. I mean, if it's tomorrow, it's too ambitious. But if it's in 100 years, then it's not ambitious enough. So is it 10 years or is it 30 years?
So the strategy will last 10 years, but we'd never get all of those routes completed in 10 years. That's probably more a 20 odd years, 30 years plan to get all of those links up to the desired standard. I'd like to say 20 years, but been told I need to say 20 to 30 just because.
Can I jump in there? I think one of the difficulties was how can we say whether the ambition is reasonable or not? Because what we don't know about is funding and what the funding would cover. So we can't say whether the ambition is appropriate because we don't know how much funding you've got and how much things are going to cost. And I think another big thing is maintenance. And we have this nice Burnt Island Kinghorn route in, which is lovely, but we're getting regular rockfall on it, to say nothing of debris and stuff off plants and bushes coming over. So unless you're actually maintaining these routes, then you've put something in which you then can't look after. And then it doesn't get used because of these issues, and then people start to try and cycle on the roads or whatever. And I have to say, in your little the document produced by Jacobs, I'm delighted to see our Burnt Island to Kinghorn cycle route featured there, and the path up the side of Oriel Road in Kirkcaldy, and our routes across Meadowfield, which is great. I mean, it's really good to see these things within our town. But these are we've got one more low-lying fruit we think would be quite easy to be put in, very short and very useful. Yeah, ambition is difficult to define when we don't know what we're defining in, because I read it as ambition. Is this what we want? And I thought, well, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then my husband looked at it and he said, oh, well, if they put all these things in, they're not going to have money for the things that really matter, and they're going to be spreading themselves too thin. So it's really difficult to answer these questions. The ambition, yeah. So I said he should look at it as a desirable thing. Otherwise, he was going to look like somebody who couldn't get out his car, which he isn't really quite active.
Yeah. And I guess, Anne, you're right there. Looking back, when I think of the last 10 years working on cycle routes in our area in the East Nuke, we put in a few hundred meters of cycle path in 10 years. It's been so frustratingly slow. So if you're saying 20 years, then 400 meters is going to be good, Polly.
Well, a number of us will be dead by then.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry about that.
Cycling.
Let's be ambitious.
Or in our wheelchairs.
Is that an old hand? Or...
No, that's a new one.
And also, Bob Bilson's trying to make a question as well, I think.
Sorry, Bob, could I come to Stuart first and then you?
Do you want me to come in on any of those comments, by the way, about funding or maintenance and things like that?
Yes, sorry, Polly. Yeah, yes. You can come back.
So the funding, there is a lot more funding for active travel coming from the government. We're not entirely sure what it'll look like at the minute, but there is a lot more funding there. And we need this strategy to be able to access it. So we wouldn't be looking for funding to put all of these routes in at once. There will need to be a prioritization process, which we're going to be looking at very soon, to work out how how we will decide which ones go in first, which ones, how they're prioritized. And then we'll need to apply to the government for the funding to put them in. For maintenance, part of the strategy, I would like to include a section about maintenance, a section about how we maintain paths. So I've got a working group that runs across different council departments, and the strategy will include sections from various different departments in the council and one of them will be a sort of maintenance plan. We know maintenance is very important. We don't want to put in any routes and say, okay, done, and then leave it for 20 years and not do anything to it. So it's a very important aspect or point in any planning of a route.
Thanks, Stuart, and then come to Bob.
Yeah, about maintenance, I'm a regular cyclist, and every route I go on from Falkland in any direction, I have to keep my eyes open for potholes, which could take me off my bike very easily. Basically, we are not maintaining any of the roads in Fife to the standard required to encourage people that aren't cyclists to take up cycling. So the other point I wanted to make was that in UK, we only have 2% of all trips by bike. And in Holland, it's already 30% of all trips are by bike, and their target is 40%. We had a target in Scotland of trying to get 10% of trips by bike by 2020, and we didn't achieve any of the growth required because we just haven't spent the money to put into either putting new routes in that are safe, putting enough low speed limits in to make urban routes safe, or enough maintenance money. Local authorities have been starved of money, since I retired about 12 years ago. And basically, there isn't the money to maintain the roads we've got, never mind putting new routes. And there's no money to maintain those routes when they're put in, because if you go to Transport Scotland, they're giving money for capital, but they're not giving enough money they're not giving money to the councils for revenue, and you need revenue to keep the standard of the routes up to what is required to encourage people to switch to active travel. So
yes, you're right. So yes, the money is there to help build the routes. We do want to write into the strategy how we'll work the maintenance, because it is very important, and there's no getting around the fact that we can put in as many routes as we want, but if we don't maintain them, it's not helpful. So we do need to work out exactly how, and that's something we haven't done yet. We haven't worked exactly out what that will look like, but it will be included in the final strategy once.
Can I also make the point that some of the routes I go on is National Cycle Network 1, which is Dover to Shetland, and that has potholes all over it. Now, last year, Fife Council improved the dry side in a couple of places and made it a lot better where there were really deep potholes. But all the sections they didn't do last year are now developing potholes. And so and that is NCN Route 1. That isn't an idea you've got about a new route. That is a national cycle network from, all the way up the east coast of Britain. So we really need to get our act together on maintenance.
Okay. Bob, can I come to you?
Oh. Hi there. Certainly our community trust in Strathkinnis, we fully support the community council on the high road that Jane just talked about. But I've got one simple question on behalf of the 40 plus villages and small communities in Fife. It actually represents 15% of the population. What can this project do for these small communities? We recently lost, if you talk about bus services, we recently lost in Strathkinnis our 42A that enables us to get from to Dundee. It was St Andrews to Dundee 42A. It got completely clobbered, chopped. So we lost that. In our village, as soon as we walk away from the houses, and the pavement finish, we have actually nothing that resembles active travel. We've just got open road, the pavement finishes and the road starts. So our own community trust own a community woodland at Magnus Muir, which is just 400 meters away from a nursery in the village where the pavement ends. And but there are obstacles there. You're on the road and you just can't get to, you can't even walk that 400 meters to the community woodland. We've been involved in several consultations, the most recent being the Active Way one from the St Andrews group, where from a population of northeast Fife, we accounted in the Strathkinnis for 15% of the inputs. And that's from a community of 800 people, which is just 1% of the population. So really, my general question is, for all the villages and small communities in Fife, what can this project do?
So part of the prioritization process that we need to go through is to work out exactly how we do prioritize the routes we want to implement, so it doesn't just benefit the bigger towns and city, because there's various different ways you can prioritize things like implementing new routes. One of them is on population. Now, obviously, the larger towns and city will have the higher population density. So one of the things I'm currently looking at is working out how we can weight different criteria to make sure that it's not just on population, and that the smaller towns and villages have just as much fair chance of being prioritized highly, if that makes sense. There's various different things we can look at. We can look at the high SIMD areas, and we can look at other forms of connectivity. We can look at where there's currently like massive gaps. But we need to do that prioritization, because we don't want it to end up being just the like inner town city routes that become prioritized first, and we want it to be a good mix across the various different types of location in Fife, from like the rural to the towns. So there's various different like elements that we need to weigh up and do some maths around, which maths is not my strong suit.
Good.
Okay, thanks very much, Holly.
Thanks, Bob. Just got a couple more minutes to sort of summarise where we're at, and I think you've kind of maybe touched on a thing there, that principles of how do we build a network, and hearing about, is it better to build routes between the villages, or is it better to build the network within the town, or is it, are we should we have other things that are prioritising that? So can you just give us what's going to happen now, Holly, with regard to the next steps, and what can we expect as a timeline? I think as Fife Communities Climate Action Network, we want to continue to be engaged in this and represent a network of villages, communities that have been pushing for this for so long, and we want to be right behind you, giving you the support you need so that you get things done.
So I'll quickly, I'll not show my presentation again, but I'll quickly run over the other things that are included in the strategy, because it's not just a network, it's also a range of like complementary measures that go alongside a network to help people travel more actively. So that's like better signage, or things like access to bikes, walking groups, cycling groups, cycle lessons, better education, both adults and in schools, and various other interventions like that. So we're asking people as well, what would help walk, cycle, or wheel more that isn't physical infrastructure, is the other measures. And I know that there'll be a lot of community groups, people across Fife that are already doing some of these things. So one of the bits of work we also need to do alongside the strategy is kind of map what's currently happening, because there's no point in us at the council thinking, oh yeah, this measure is really good, trying to do it when there's someone else in every local area already doing it. For example, we're better focusing on what's not happening. So I'd also welcome any comments or thoughts about other measures that help. For example, I was talking to someone the other week who said that having adaptive bikes or electric bikes or bikes in general to hire at parks would be good, especially adaptive bikes, because they're harder to transport, and if you've got one, you're probably not taking it far. But if you could go to a park and hire an electric trike, for example, or then that would be much easier. So any other measures that people think would be useful are good. Once the consultation finishes, we will gather everyone's thoughts and opinions. That's probably quite a long, there'll be a lot of information. We've got a lot of responses. I've got a lot of notes from all of these sort of meetings that we need to gather together. And then we'll work with Jacobs on creating the final network and strategy, which will go out to consultation again with stakeholders. FCCAN are a stakeholder in that. So while it won't go out to public consultation again, it will go back out to general stakeholders to comment on, and make sure that we've got not just the network, but the supplementary measures right. It will also include a action plan, which will look a little bit like the local transport strategy action plan, have actions, and then if it'll be done in the first year, the first 2 to 5 years, or the first 5 to 10 years, or whatever. Hopefully it'll then go through committee some point this year when the committees are, and then we'll have a live strategy which we can work to both implementing the routes and the other measures that will help people walk, cycle and wheel more often. Very quick summary, but I've got a couple of hands.
That's great. Sorry, I'm going to have to go in a second, but Patrick, have you got, is that an old hand, Patrick?
It's my hand. Yeah, it was just briefly that it was a good idea. I've sent Alan McLean photographs before of these 20-mile-an-hour zones where pedestrian or cyclists are sharing small roads with motorists. Could we get all the roads in Fife that are assigned as cycle routes down to 20 miles an hour? And that would be a very cheap way of starting making cycling safer.
What did you say? All of the roads?
All the roads that are signed by Sustrans as cycle routes down to 20 miles an hour. I have sent Alan McLean loads of pictures of these from other parts of Scotland. Fife just doesn't have any.
Right.
I mean, it's pathetic. You can't
Thanks, Avril.
cycling when there's cars going at 60 miles an hour.
No, it's insane. Thanks, Avril. Stuart, just quickly.
Yeah, my point is about when I was involved in the North Sea cycle route, I went to Denmark, Holland, etc. There, 85% of children cycle to school because they have safe networks for cycling. They have a footpath, a cycleway, a road, a cycleway and a footpath on every road. And when you go out like going to work time and going to school time, there's more bikes than there are cars. When you go to the railway station, there's thousands of bikes parked there. Nobody goes to the railway station. Nobody walks to the railway station. Nobody goes in their car to the railway station. They all take their bike. And basically, we are 50 years behind Europe in terms of what we're doing about cycling, walking, and access and safe access. And I think it's really sad that today we're talking about a 30-year strategy to start plugging the gaps that have been filled in these other European countries for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. And I think we're all agreed. But let's really, support this as a network. We've got an opportunity, I think, to, this hasn't come along, this opportunity before. It will enable us, I hope, to draw down more funds, to see more routes, and the things that all of us, everyone in this room, all doing great work already. We just need to keep pushing that and supporting Holly in this agenda. So thanks ever so much, everybody. I hope that was useful. Spread the word though, get everyone to undertake that consultation. You might need to support them with some of it, but make sure they fill it in and really get your information across, or email it direct to Holly, as we've seen. All right, thanks ever so much for your time. Andy?
I'm happy to hang about if people want to put stuff in the Padlet. If they want to tell me stuff, I can put it in, and then I'm able to create a group consultation to send in that way.
Perfect, thanks.
I've also got another 15 minutes or so. If anyone's got further things they want to discuss, I can hang around till about 1:45.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to have to head. Great to see you.
Okay, bye, Ali.
Thanks, Alan.
So can I get some comments on the overall ambition for the network? Anybody?
I thought these questions were very difficult to answer. I mean, I'm a geographer and I've designed questionnaires, and I find it very hard to understand what they were looking for, because, you know, what's the ambition? Yeah, if there were safe cycle routes along all those roads in Fife, that's fantastic. So I think I gave it a good grade. But, you know, as someone said, there's no time. We didn't have the time scale for that. So it is a great idea that there would be safe cycle network all over Fife, but I think I'd be dead by the time it happens.
Okay, nice. Anybody else on that one?
Yeah, can I just comment on, you know, when my children were growing up, my wife wouldn't let the children cycle on the streets, you know, in rural Fife, East Fife, because it was too dangerous. And then 10 years ago, I got hit by a car on my bike, and I was hospitalized and would have been off work for over a year had I not been early retired. So basically, the roads in Fife are not safe for cycling. And you're not going to get any new people switching to cycling when people like me, you know, get nearly killed, you know, by getting hit by a car. He had the sun in his eyes, and he only slowed down to 30 miles an hour when he hit me. I came off the front of his windscreen and was thrown over a stone wall and hospitalized, and had short-term memory loss for 3 weeks. I didn't even know I was in hospital. So basically, I'm an experienced cyclist who know what I'm doing, and I nearly got killed. So goodness knows what we've got to do, but we need to do a hell of a lot.
So you're saying it's not ambitious enough?
No, I'm saying we need to do it now. We need to adopt.
Right, okay.
Sorry, that's my point. I've
it's ambitious, but do
absolutely
it now.
no problem with the idea, but to take 30 years, we'll then be 80 years behind the rest of Europe in terms of doing what we need to do. So it's just completely unacceptable that we haven't already done it. Never mind that we're going to take 30 years to do it.
Hopefully it won't take 30 years. Hopefully they'll keep getting more and more money into active travel. There is more money coming, so I'd hope that it kind of snowballs out, if that makes sense, as the funding keep increasing and we keep being able to do more and more infrastructure each year, that we would love to then see this done much sooner.
Holly.
But I can't see the future with the funding, so I
But just one thing I want to ask Holly was Patrick here. Yeah, just one thing which we've mentioned to you before, and just wanted to get an update on it. The road, the cycle path, which has been around for as many years as we've virtually been in St Andrews, since as we got it organised through the Community Council, as the two-guard bridge, as you know, and that there does need maintenance. I mean, see, that's obviously a separate issue to the current.
The footpath section of it is extremely dangerous.
And it's the busiest road.
It's a really bad surface, really narrow, and the traffic's going at 70 miles an hour. You need to get the speed limit down to 20 or 30 until you reach the segregated track. So that would be easy. Just change the speed limit and resurface the footpath. The number of times the road's been resurfaced and nobody touches the footpath, and somebody dug a big cable line up the middle of it, which is all eroding. I mean, it needs to rapidly be fixed, that. And I've emailed you loads of times about that.
You have, I know, and it is still on my radar.
That's your national route 1. I mean, it's our only safe route out of St Andrews. And then you get to that bit of the footpath.
Yeah, it is on our radar, and we are looking at it. I know it's taking a long time.
The traffic's too fast to be that close to people cycling. Children couldn't cycle on that.
Yeah, I've done that as well with kids.
Dangerous.
Andrea, how are you going to do this? Are you going to just read out the questions and expect a group response, or are you just trying to muddle through from what we've already said? Because I think we're getting nowhere here.
Yeah, well, I'm rapidly
nearly 2 hours.
I'm typing what people are saying. So,
well, there's stuff in the chat as well. I hope that's covered too.
I'm copying and pasting that into it. Can you see it? Because it should be live. You should be able to see what I'm typing. Yeah. So the level of ambition. We're all saying the ambition is good, but we need it to be done now. I think that's the general consensus. Do you think that the level ambitious for the network of local active travel routes? So the strategic, number 2 is strategic active travel, and question 3 is local active travel. So do people see the difference, and have you got some sort of comments as to do you think that they are both ambitious?
I think we're not sure what's being prioritized. You know, yeah, we don't know whether you're prioritizing the strategic routes or the routes within towns.
Which would you like to see priority? Oh,
yeah.
So I suppose strategic you're thinking is between the villages, and local is within the villages or within the towns.
Well, for us, I think we had a core path across the links upgraded so that it could link up the Fife coastal path with the route to the Kinghorn Burnt Island shared cycleway. But it stops at the railway tunnel, and Alan's been out and had a look, and we really want that to go continue across past the leisure centre and along the harbour side to the rail station. And we've been at this for years and years, and I've dragged everybody I can down to have a look at this, and everybody says, oh yes. And Forth Ports have left a strip of land for development for this, and it just needs Fife Council to speak to Forth Ports to say yes, we'll take this on, because Forth Ports don't want to construct it, but they're quite happy for Fife Council to take the responsibility, and they said they would lease it for a nominal sum, which I take to be £1 a year or something. So they put their new fencing up to leave the strip and everything available. So in the moment I'm getting flack in Burnt Island because the anti-cycle lobby says, oh, what have you done with this motorway across the links, and it doesn't go anywhere. You know, and I said, well, yeah, but it was supposed to go to the rail station, and it was supposed to provide disabled access to the promenade, and instead of which it comes to a dogleg under a tunnel, and there's no signage, there's no bollards, you know, we're waiting for a whole load of bits and pieces. So I'm going to say that, you know, the Kinghorn-Kirkcaldy link is very important to people in Burnt Island, but the link from the links upgraded core path, which links the coastal path with Kinghorn Burnt Island cycleway, needs to progress across past the leisure centre and to Forth Place by the rail station. That's our 2 big priorities. I have sent I think to Alan with a whole list of little photo maps and things that the 8 of 11 of us got our heads together and tried to prioritise, but we don't know what you're doing with your funding, you know. So, you know, a short section like that, which has an obvious route and an agreement with the landowners, you know, it just needs, you know, Fife Council to say, yes, we're going for this, you know, and then we've got something that makes a lot of sense. So I don't want to sort of hog any more of the conversation. I'm aware there's already been a lot of a conversation about Sustrans. Sorry.
It's okay. So I can comment a bit on that one. I know Alan and Andrew are talking to Forth Ports and looking at that link to continue round past the leisure centre to the railway station. There's also been talks with the NCN team about bits in Burnt Island as well, so sort of linking to all of that. So that is being looked at the minute.
Well, the National Cycle Network seems to have changed their signage without telling us they were going to do it, so I don't know whether they've changed their route. So I think that one section in there is really important. Never mind all the other twiddly bits round about. That's something that can go ahead, you know, as soon as. An easy win, a low-lying fruit that would really make a big difference. Am I saying enough, Mrs. Marks? She's laughing at me. I know. I try every in. Yes.
For 10 years we've been working on the cycle tractor trail. Sustrans has put tens of thousands into researching it, and the money seems to have gone nowhere because we still haven't got it. The other problem was I asked a friend, did she want to fill in this survey? And she said the last time she filled it in, she did a lot of cycling during COVID when there's no traffic. Yeah. The last time she filled in a Fife survey, she got an email back saying there were enough people cycling in this area, the money would be spent in the west of Fife. And I had a similar email to that 10 years ago, that there were enough people cycling here, the money would be spent in the west of Fife. So Birdshire might be lucky. So
it's not just bikes, though. You know, that's the thing you have to remember. It's buggies and wheelchairs and everything else as well. You know,
I've asked for a very simple ramp to get up some steps, but I once had to lift my grandson out, put him at the top with a stranger, and drag a pram up. I can't even put in the ramp up the side of these steps. I mean, it would cost next to nothing. A number of times we've asked about that, a safe route up from the West Sands up towards the bus station, and we can't get a concrete ramp. I mean, you do feel you're hitting your head against a brick wall, because we suggest these things, you know, solutions, and they're just ignored.
Tell us what you really think.
I kind of have to go
passionate people here, Andrea. Sorry,
please. I'm loving that that Avro is able to vent this. This is probably really good stuff. But I need to go myself. So I put my email in the comments. So please, if you send more comments, I can add them to this Padlet, and then I can create a group response from FCAN. And I think Holly is saying that the more group responses, the more that they will listen to. So individual and group.
Can you give us until tomorrow to do this? Because you know, quite a bit of the day's already taken up, and I've got other things to do.
Yeah, so. I mean, when does the response have to be? The consultation have to be?
I think it's Friday. Is it 25th?
Sunday the 25th.
Perfect. So I've got a full day on Friday. So if you can send it to me by Friday morning, I will do it Friday. That would be great.
However, if you think of anything next week that you haven't put in, just send it to me in an email, because we'll still be collating all of so you'll probably have a couple of weeks grace period while we're still collating everything from.
Are you Holly.Hunter at FCAN?
No,
Fife.gov.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Holly.Hunter at fife.gov.uk.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
I'm also going to have to run, so
thank you so much. Thank you, Holly. Thank you. Bye. Thanks everybody for coming. That was a great discussion. Love it.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye. Lovely to meet you all.
Nice to meet you all. Yeah, as well.